Okay, so we're going to work on scoop coating a screen. And so when we scoop coat a serigraphy screen, what we're doing is we're putting a photosensitive emulsion onto the surface of the screen. So once we put this liquid on there and it dries in the air, it's water soluble, but after we hit it with light, it'll become waterproof, so water won't wash it off. So this is probably the thing you're going to do the most in this class, is you're going to scoop coat your screen. It's going to take, you're going to spend a lot of time doing this. So you want to pay attention and get as good at it as you can. So pieces of gear I like you guys to use for this. You have to wear your goggles because they look so good. And you need to have some gloves as well, just because we don't want to have the chemical that's in this photo emulsion, you know, kind of sticking to our hands and getting into our system that way. So you want to take your screen, should look a lot like this one. And you want to go ahead and put that into our scoop coating stand right here. There's two slots that kind of hold this thing in place right here. So you can just go ahead and turn this little lever and it's going to hold the screen in place so that it doesn't flop around and go into place on us. And then in behind here, in the back, is where I stashed the scoop coaters. So they're kind of like clamped in there, but the scoop coater basically has a nice straight hard edge right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to scrape with that across the surface of our screen, and it's going to deposit a really nice thin layer of emulsion onto the screen. So what you want to do is you want to go ahead and set your sort of the scoop coater in place right there. Then we're going to open up this bucket. And these can be kind of hard, so you might need to use some pliers or something like that to help you get it open. And you can see that it's like this really nice fluorescent green color that tells you that it's got the photochemical in it. And what we want to make sure that we're doing for this is that we're just pouring a small amount in the bottom of that tray. So I like to get paper towels from over here. To help me manage my mess. We don't want to get it anywhere, and if we do, we want to make sure that we're cleaning it up afterwards. And so what you can do is just take this photo emulsion and then just pour a little bead of it out into the bottom of the scoop coater, and I'll show you how that looks in a second. You don't need a ton, maybe like half full. It's probably fine. And the emulsion is, you know, it's light sensitive, but most of the time, if you're careful, you can just do it out here in the room. You can turn off the overhead lights if you want to, but it's ultraviolet light that ends up hardening this stuff up, so we definitely don't want to do this in direct sunlight, right? So what you want to do now is just take this and clean this edge off to make sure that we don't have any emulsion along the edges. That's what's going to help us keep the can easier to open and close. So we cleaned up our mess there. All right, make sure you leave a lid on it to help protect it from the light, okay? So now I have my scoop coater all loaded up and charged up, and if you look, you can kind of see that it's got the nice green goo in it. It sort of smells like Elmer's glue. I'm sure you will love that. So then what we want to do is we want to turn our scoop coater and kind of place it in there into this little trough thing, and then tip it forward until the emulsion hits the screen. Then we just want to pull up. Just like that. And with any luck, we don't have any big drips or trouble areas or anything like that. It's just all kind of nice and neat. So then we want to flip our little, you know, doodad there that holds the screen in place, and flip this thing around. Put the screen back in place, and then you want to do the back side of it as well. And you can do, if you want to fill in more parts of it, like you can kind of overlap it here like this. So. But you're not going to print all the way out to the edges of your screen. You're going to end up, you know, really just the central kind of sweet spot is the place that you're going to be printing. So you don't have to worry about getting all the way out to the very edge unless you really want to. So now that I've got a good amount of emulsion on there, you can see it's nice and, you know, kind of thickly put on there. Now I just want to scrape it back. So I just want to put this in there and just use that sharp edge of that squeegee to scrape back the emulsion so that it's just a nice thin layer. There's lots of different theories about, you know, how much emulsion you need and all that kind of thing. And I like a really thin layer. That's what our shop is set up for, so that it you know, exposes correctly. So you want to have a thin layer, but you know, if you get to be an advanced student, you want to experiment, play around with some other, you know, having the emulsion go on thicker. That's up to you. So again, I'm just scraping this back, right? So we have a nice thin layer. So my scoop coated screen is now ready. If I leave this out here in the lights, it's going to dry to the touch, but it's also going to harden up and it's going to affect our ability to have it be exposed to the light. So what you want to make sure you do now is, before you do anything else, just, you know, carefully take this, don't bump into anything, and we're going to go walk over and we're going to put that into the dark room cabinet. So you want to make sure you keep it in a dark place where there's no light of any kind that's going to hit it. So it needs to be nice and light proof. I'm going to go put this away. Okay, so once I've put my screen away in the light proof cabinet, now I just need to make sure I clean up this mess. And it's really, again, really important that we clean up all of our messes and are you know, careful about taking care of the shop, because everybody has to share this space. And so if we don't do a good job of managing the materials and the equipment, it's not going to work for everybody else, and then this class is going to kind of fail. So we want to make sure that you're being conscientious of all the other people that work here. So just because you're stressed out and haven't slept a whole lot doesn't mean you get to leave this big mess of emulsion laying everywhere, right? You got to make sure that you put everything away. So over here, what I like to do is I like to get a so to clean up, you want to make sure that you get a mat board card, one of the mat board chunks of squares that we cut up that are over by the etching area. And you can use this to kind of scrape this emulsion out of here. So we'll just take this and we'll just carefully, again, without spilling it everywhere, going to dump the emulsion back into the container, kind of let it drip off. And then I like to use a card like this one and just scrape as much as you can out of there. Sort of like if you've ever made cookies or something, right? And you're trying to get all the batter out of the pan. You just want a spatula or something to kind of scoot it out of there and help get it out. We also don't want to waste it, right? This stuff is, a bucket of this is about $100, so we can't afford to buy very many of these for the quarter. So if we go through it all because it's wasted, we're going to have to figure out some other way for you all to make your screen prints. So make sure that you're conscientious about, you know, not wasting it or anything. So once you've kind of got it scraped out of there, you got as much of this stuff off as possible. You can throw the card away and then put this in the sink. I like to just put it in and let some water run on it, so it fills up with water. And while that's doing that, you want to come over here and again check our bucket lid to make sure that the liquid is clean. And make sure that you push down really hard on the lid. Make sure that the lid is nice and tight so that it's, you know, not getting any light in it, not going to dry it out. And then we want to go ahead and put this bucket back over by the dark room in the spot that's labeled for it, so that we know where the emulsion is at all times. And if we do this every time, we should have a good amount of emulsion to get us through the door. Then you want to make sure you clean up. So any little green bits of emulsion that splashed around, you want to try and wipe those up with a paper towel. And remember, the emulsion is water soluble up until the point that it dries and hardens up with ultraviolet light. So it's actually really easy for me to go in here and clean this mess up with a sponge or a paper towel or something like that, and get all the emulsion off of the glass surfaces and off of this, so that we keep this place kind of reasonably clean, tight. So, and then I'll show you how to wash out the rest of the scoop coater here in a second. So just like all things, it's really important that we take good care of our equipment, and the scoop coater in particular, because if it ends up with like a bunch of divots and pits along the edges here, or if it gets a lot of crusty emulsion that's dried on there and won't come off, then when we go to scoop coat, it's going to leave these little streaks in the screen, and it's not going to coat coat the screen correctly. So what you want to make sure that you do is get like a sponge, like one of these green scrubby sponges, and actually really work hard at scrubbing every little bit of emulsion out of here. And remember, the emulsion is water soluble, so it'll dissolve with water as long as we don't let it harden with ultraviolet light. And then remember, these little edges come off, these little black, these things right here will come right off of here too. So we can scrub those off really good, and that actually helps get the rest of this thing clean. You want to do the outside edges too, especially right along here. Just going to set that up to let it drip dry. And we'll clean this stuff up here. And we'll also have a toothbrush over here that you can use to kind of scrub off the rest of the emulsion that might get stuck in these places, and make sure that we have a nice cleaning supplies over here for you to use. But once it's all done, you want to just go ahead and dry it, and then we'll just put it all back together. These the little black ends kind of just wedge back on there like this. Put the whole thing back together, and then you put it back behind the scoop coating station. There are 2 scoop coaters back there. This is the small one. It's the easiest one to use for you. There's also a larger one. So once we're done, we'll put this back where it goes, and it'll be super clean. But the idea is that I don't have any emulsion left on this at all. It's really clean. I've been very, very particular about it, right? And then I want to just make sure I'm washing the emulsion off of my gloves. And then I'm done. You have a screen that's scoop coated, so now if you let it dry, it just has to be dry to the touch, basically. So once it's air dry, usually 20, 30 minutes, something like that, you are able to, scoop coat it. You can redo something else until it's dry, and then it's prepared to be exposed in the exposure unit. Okay, so the emulsion is going to go in here, and we're going to have a spot that's all labeled for it. So we're going to go ahead and put the emulsion back in the spot that it's supposed to go in the darkroom. And then here's our darkroom the cabinet, the dark cabinet where we keep everything, right? So in here we have all these screens that have been pre-sensitized or pre-coated. So this is a screen all coated up with emulsion, right? And as long as I keep it in the darkroom cabinet, it's going to be just fine. I'm going to be able to leave it in there for quite some time, and it should be, good. It's good to go. So if you have more than one screen, you can coat a couple of them and kind of keep them rotating in there. Make sure you put your name on all 4 sides of your screen. You want to make sure you have the screen well labeled so everybody knows it's yours. And then, you want to make sure that we keep the black kind of covering in place here, and then we close this and just latch it so that it doesn't get open, so we don't get a lot of light that seeps into there. So make sure you keep the emulsion where it goes and put your screens in the darkroom cabinet to store them.